My name is Marcus Hale. I'm 34, a single dad. And on my son's 10th birthday, every chair I set out stayed empty. Blue streamers fluttered against the fence like they were clapping for no one. My phone buzzed once. Don't be dramatic. It's just a kid's party. I stood at the sink, knife still wet from cutting cake, and watched my sister's brunch story mimosas, laughter, my mother in sunglasses. They'd promised they'd come. They didn't. That was the day I stopped mistaking proximity for love. But what they didn't know was that I keep every receipt, even the invisible ones. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by your own family. Because sometimes, the people who share your blood are the first to test your limits. Stay with me, this isn't just about a birthday. It's about the moment silence finally decided to fight back. I didn't always count everything. There was a time I believed family ran on trust, not tallies. But trust without proof becomes a blank check. And I'd signed too many. I grew up in a house where noise meant safety. Mom Valerie loved sound. The TV humming. The clatter of dishes. My brother Darren's basketball thumping against the wall. My sister Sloane's hairdryer whining like a jet engine. If the house was loud, it meant life was normal. If it was quiet, someone had disappointed her. I learned that lesson when I was 10, the same age Benji is now. Thanksgiving morning. Mom was in full command, shouting orders between spoonfuls of mashed potatoes. Darren, stop picking the marshmallows off. Sloane, make yourself useful. She never said my name. I was already useful. I was basting the turkey, sweeping crumbs, doing what I always did, making things work. When dinner was served, she filled Sloane's plate twice, laughed at Darren's joke, and forgot mine until Aunt Ruth nudged her. Val, Marcus hasn't eaten. She blinked, smiled like it was a minor oversight, and said, "Oh, he's patient. He's my reliable one." Reliable. That word stuck like gum on a shoe. When I was 21, Dad Ray Hale walked out with a duffel bag and an apology he didn't look me in the eye to say. Mom stood in the driveway, her robe flapping in the wind, and pointed at me. "You're the man now." It wasn't a pep talk. It was a job assignment. That winter, the pipes froze. The furnace died. Valerie didn't call a plumber. She called me. "You're good with wires," she said. "Heat can't be that different." I spent the night hunched over a flashlight, frost crawling up my sleeves. When it finally clicked on, she patted my shoulder like I'd completed an errand. "See? You just needed to try harder." Sloane, on the other hand, never had to try. By 23, she dropped out of one art school and rebranded herself as a wellness creative. She turned our old garage into a studio full of candles and ring lights. When she launched her business, I stayed up 2 nights coding her website and paid 6 months of hosting. "You'll get it back when I'm profitable," she said, waving her glass of green juice like a wand. Profit never came, but new outfits did. Darren's disasters were louder. The first DUI call came at 2 a.m. I remember the chill of the courthouse floor under my shoes and the way he whispered, "Bro, just this once." It became a chorus. Rent money, lawyer fees, gym membership. Just this once. Just this once. I wish I could say I did it because I'm generous. The truth is, I did it because guilt is a chain that sounds like love when you're raised wrong. Then came the year of the flu. Valerie insisted she was fine even while coughing so hard she bent double. "Don't fuss," she said, stirring soup she couldn't taste. When she fainted in the kitchen, I caught her, drove her to urgent care, and stayed until midnight. She told the nurse, "That's my Marcus. He takes care of things." The nurse smiled. I wanted to scream. Somewhere in those years, I became the family's operating system, running quietly in the background. Never crashing, always updating. Every request came with that same tone, confident I'd say yes. Then Benji was born. The first time I held him, I promised he'd never grow up, wondering if people meant what they said. I'd make sure of it. That night, the hospital lights hummed, machines beeped, and I felt a strange kind of peace, like maybe the cycle could end with me. Life as a single dad wasn't glamorous. Childcare was a second rent. Health insurance was a third. But I made it work. My job fixing networks paid the bills, and side gigs covered the gaps. When Benji outgrew his cleats mid-season, I found a pair at the thrift store and scrubbed them with a toothbrush until they looked new. He said, "Dad, they shine." And they did. Meanwhile, my family's group chat looked like a travel magazine. Sloan posting from Napa, Darren from a Vegas pool, Mom from a wine tasting. I asked once if she wanted to do Sunday dinners with us. Sweetie, my calendar is full. Next month. Next month never came, but my phone lit up every payday. Quick favor. Emergency. Don't tell anyone I asked. 1. Aunt Ruth saw through it. She'd worked in accounting long enough to recognize emotional theft. You keep saving them, she told me once, and they'll never learn the floor is solid. I laughed it off back then. I didn't know how right she was. The signs of deeper manipulation started small. A credit card offer addressed to me arrived in the mail, but the return address said Sloan Studio, LLC. I asked her about it. Oh, must be a mix-up, she said too quickly. I tucked it into my folder, labeled weird. I didn't know it then, but that envelope would matter later. Then there was Mom's tax season text. Need Benji's info, just to optimize deductions. She said it so casually, like asking for a cup of sugar. I sent it because who questions their mother? When the next refund post showed her tagging herself at a spa, something itched at the back of my brain. But I told myself it wasn't worth a fight. It always starts that way. By the time Benji turned 8, I'd stopped expecting fairness. I measured affection in leftover lasagna containers and thanks, honey texts. I told myself that was enough. But every now and then, a small seam cracked through the denial. Christmas Eve, the smell of pine and cinnamon candles. Sloan handed out gifts with the flair of a magician. She gave Mom a designer scarf, Darren a smartwatch, and me a mug that said, "Keep calm and fix it." I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. Later, after everyone left, I washed the dishes alone. The lights reflected off the soap bubbles like tiny spotlights. I caught my reflection in the window. Tired. Quiet. A man rehearsing gratitude he didn't feel. I didn't know it yet. But that image me behind the sink, pretending everything was fine, would replay years later. Only this time, I wouldn't be the one pretending. By the time I turned 30, I had built a life made of checklists. Every morning started with the same ritual. Pack Benji's lunch, double-check the router logs for my clients. Label the groceries with dates. Update the spreadsheet titled Survival. I knew exactly how much milk was left in the fridge and how long it would take for the laundry to dry before the evening chill. That precision wasn't just habit, it was armor. Because when you grow up in a family where love comes with invoices, control feels like safety. Benji never met my father. Sometimes he'd ask, "Was Grandpa nice?" I'd pause long enough for him to lose interest and say, "He had good hands." That was true. Dad could fix anything with a screwdriver. What he couldn't fix was Mom's hunger for approval, approval from neighbors, friends, anyone who'd listen. The day he left, I remember the silence more than his words. The hum of the refrigerator became a kind of clock counting down to my next responsibility. Mom used to tell me, "You're the glue of this family." But glue doesn't hold forever. It just gets brittle over time. After Dad left, the roles crystallized. Sloan became the dreamer. Darren, the screw-up. Me, the bridge between them. If Sloan's car broke down, I was the tow truck. If Darren lost another job, I was the safety net. Mom called it family loyalty. Aunt Ruth called it emotional bankruptcy. One night, after helping Darren move out of yet another apartment he'd been evicted from, Aunt Ruth met me in the parking lot. The sodium lights made everything look orange and unreal. "You can't keep paying for other people's lessons, Marcus," she said. "They'll start thinking tuition's free." I laughed, but her words lodged deep. Still, I kept doing it. Not because I wanted to be the hero, but because I didn't know how to stop. When Benji turned 5, I threw his first real birthday party. It was small cupcakes, a paper crown, a dinosaur piñata from the clearance bin. Valerie said she'd come. So did Sloan and Darren. Only Aunt Ruth showed up, carrying a tray of brownies and the kind of smile that knows too much. She helped me clean up afterward. "You're raising him, right?" she said. I wanted to believe that meant something. The next week, Sloan posted a photo from a wellness retreat in Sedona. Darren texted me for gas money. Mom sent a meme about gratitude. I didn't answer any of them. For the first time, silence felt like oxygen. Work became my escape. I liked fixing systems because they obeyed logic. If something broke, you could trace the fault, replace the part, and the network would hum again. People weren't like that. They glitched for reasons you'd never find on a diagram. Sloan once said, "You're so good at fixing everyone else's problems, Marcus. Maybe that's your purpose." I wanted to say, no, it's my sentence. But I didn't. The year before everything fell apart, Benji started asking questions I wasn't ready for. Why doesn't Grandma visit? Why does Aunt Sloane always call you when she needs something? Kids see patterns before they understand them. I told him, grown-ups get busy. He nodded, but his eyes said he didn't buy it. That was the same year Sloane's studio had a grand relaunch. She rented a loft downtown, filled it with silk curtains and faux greenery. I helped string the lights because I still hadn't learned my lesson. She introduced me to everyone as my brother, the tech genius who keeps me running. I smiled for the photos. Later, I found a credit statement mailed to my address with charges from that same lighting store. When I asked, she laughed. Oh, must have been a shipping error. I filed that too. Folder name, pattern recognition. Then came Mom's new phase, investment events. She started attending high-end charity galas where tickets cost more than my monthly rent. Networking, she called it. For the family, she always found a way to connect her image to someone else's labor. My stability, Sloane's glamour, Darren's charm. We were her resume. During one of those months, she sent me a spreadsheet labeled Holiday Budget 2. It looked like a ransom. Note names, gifts, prices, color-coded notes. At the bottom, in bold, it said, split equally among siblings. Equal meant I paid for everything. I bought Sloane a new camera tripod, Darren a set of tires, Mom the stand mixer she'd been hinting about since spring. When I opened my own gift, it was a scented candle labeled Balance. I almost laughed. Balance. Right. That night, while everyone dozed off in the living room, I stood at the kitchen counter scrolling through my bank app. The total looked like a bruise. I whispered, "You're done." But I didn't mean it. Not yet. There was still that old programming in me, the voice that said family means yes, even when it cost you peace. Then came the spring before Benji's 10th birthday, the one that would change everything. It started with a text from Mom, "Let's make this year special for Benji. We'll all be there." I wanted to believe her. I printed out the message and pinned it to the fridge like a promise. The week leading up to the party was chaos in the best way: balloons, streamers, folding chairs borrowed from Mrs. Delgado across the street. She even brought an extra cooler and said, "You've got the best smile, Marcus. That kid's lucky." On the morning of the party, the sky was the color of hope blue, wide, too good to be true. I grilled hot dogs, set up the inflatable soccer goal, and checked my phone every 15 minutes. "We'll be there," Mom had said. Wouldn't miss it. 2 o'clock came. Then 3. Kids from Benji's class ran across the yard. Shoes off, faces flushed. The laughter sounded like it belonged to someone else's family. I kept glancing toward the street, waiting for headlights that never appeared. At 3:11 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Don't be dramatic. It's just a kid's party." I read it twice, because my brain rejected it the first time. Then I looked at Benji, cheeks red, hair sweaty, holding the soccer ball like it was treasure. "Can we cut the cake now, Dad?" "Of course," I said. We sang. He blew out the candles in one breath. Frosting smeared across his grin. I clapped and smiled until my face hurt. Then I went inside to wash the knife and breathe where no one could see me. The kitchen smelled like sugar and dish soap. On the counter sat my phone, face up. A new message from Sloane blinked across the screen. "We'll catch the next one. Today's insane." Then a notification from her story popped up. Brunch photos. Mimosas. Hashtag self-care Saturday. Mom was in the corner of the picture. Sunglasses on, glass raised. Darren's tattooed arm around her shoulders. I stared until my reflection appeared in the black mirror of my phone, just me, alone in a room full of evidence that blood isn't always thicker than absence. I remember whispering to myself, "Never again." I didn't know it then, but that sentence would become my battle cry. 2 days after the party, my phone lit up again, this time not with an apology, but a PDF. Subject line: Maddie's Sweet 16. RSVP. Now. The email sparkled with emojis and exclamation marks. My mother's words were practically shouting through the screen. "Formal attire, $2,100 per guest. We'll need you to cover Grandma's spot. She's on a fixed income. This is an investment in family relationships." I blinked, thinking it had to be a joke. A Sweet 16 that cost more than my rent. And no one had said a single word about missing Benji's birthday. Attached to the email was a glossy flyer, a photo of my niece, Maddie, in a tiara, and beneath it, a list of gold patrons. My eyes froze halfway down the page. Gold patron, Marcus Hale, in honor of family. They hadn't even asked. They just decided. Used my name. Used me. For a moment, all I could do was laugh. The kind of dry, hollow laugh that sounds like glass cracking. Then came the group chat notifications, rapid fire, overlapping bubbles. Sloan. We're all in. OFC. Can't wait. Mom. Marcus. You'll handle the deposit, right? You're the organized one. Darren. Yo. Open bar? Then I'm definitely going. LOL. I stared at the thread, my thumbs hovering above the keyboard. I typed, no, then deleted it. Typed it again, deleted. Not because I didn't mean it, but because I wanted to say it right. For 34 years, every word I'd said to them had been filtered through the same hope that they'd hear me if I just stayed calm enough, rational enough, helpful enough. But people who feed off you never listen until you stop serving dinner. So I waited. I let the chat breathe. Let them pile on the entitlement like toppings on a sundae. And then, at 1:17 p.m., when they were all online posting photos of iced coffee, gym mirrors, forwarded prayers, I posted mine. A collage. Top left, Benji's backyard. The blue banner still taped to the fence. Top right, the row of empty folding chairs. Bottom left, the Costco cake, half-eaten. Bottom right, a screenshot of their text from last week. We'll be there. Wouldn't miss it. No caption. Just the truth. The typing bubbles appeared almost instantly. Sloan, why are you posting this here? Just text us. Mom, don't guilt us, Marcus. We have lives. Darren, bro, you're making it weird. Kids don't care about that stuff. Then came the one that lit a fuse. Mom, enough. Stop being dramatic. Focus on the sweet 16 now. I could almost hear her tone, the one she used whenever someone challenged her version of the world. I stared at the message for a full minute, then opened Venmo. I typed her name, entered $1, and added a note. Congratulations. Send. $1. One word. The mirror flipped. For the first time, I didn't explain myself. I didn't justify, didn't soften the edge. I just sent a reflection. That afternoon, I drove to the hardware store. The smell of sawdust and metal was grounding. The man behind the counter asked, replacing locks or rekeying? Replacing, I said. It took 10 minutes. 10 minutes to end 34 years of open-door access. When the deadbolt clicked into place, the sound was small but final. I stood there, hands still on the knob, feeling something shift inside me, a silence that didn't ache this time. That night, I sat with Benji on the couch while he built a Lego tower. Dad, he said, are we mad at Grandma? I looked at his tiny hands pressing the bricks together, his concentration pure. We're not mad, I said carefully. We're just taking a break. He nodded, satisfied with that answer. Kids understand boundaries better than adults. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Unknown numbers, private calls. Then came a knock. Not friendly, measured. Firm. Through the peephole, 2 police officers. Morning, one said. We're responding to a call from a family member. They reported possible threats and a concern for a child's welfare at this address. And there it was. The escalation. They'd skipped my son's birthday, billed me for another child's party, used my name without permission, and now, because I'd changed my locks, they called the police. I smiled, slow and cold. Of course they did, I said. I opened the door. Come on in. The taller officer's gaze swept over the living room. Benji sat on the couch, spoon halfway to his mouth, eyes flicking between the screen and the uniforms at the door. The cereal milk had formed a tiny ring on the coffee table. Everything about the moment felt too quiet. Sir, we just need to check that everything's okay, the officer said, voice even. Everything's fine, I replied. My son's finishing breakfast. Want some coffee? He blinked, like politeness wasn't the reaction he'd expected. No, thank you. Can we talk in the kitchen? Sure, I said. The kitchen smelled like toast and dish soap. I could hear Benji humming softly from the next room, half watching his cartoons. I placed my phone on the counter, unlocked, and opened to a folder labeled Receipts. This is about my family, I began. They missed my son's birthday. 2 days later. They sent me a bill for someone else's party. When I refused, they started escalating. The officer nodded, not interrupting. They used my name on an event sponsor list without asking. Told a venue I'd pay thousands. Then, when I changed my locks, they decided to call you. The shorter officer raised his eyebrows. For what reason? Apparently, I said. They think I'm holding family property. The only property I changed was the key to my own house. He smirked. That tracks. I slid the phone across the counter. Here's everything. Screenshots, messages, invoices, even a PDF they forged my name on. The taller one scrolled through the evidence, his expression shifting from professional to faintly disgusted. We see this more than you'd think, he muttered. Family gets used to free labor, free money. Someone finally says no, and they panic. He handed the phone back carefully, like it was loaded. No threats, no weapons, no signs of danger here. You want to make any statement for the record? Yes, I said. Please note that they've misused my name for a financial commitment and filed a false welfare report. The officer tapped something into his tablet. Logged. If they keep bothering you, call us. Don't engage. When they left, Benji peeked around the corner. Are we in trouble? I knelt down beside him. No, buddy. Not even a little. He nodded, thoughtful. Then can I finish my cereal? Absolutely. The moment the door closed, I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. The silence felt clean again. An hour later, my email pinged. Subject: Apologies from Harborview Pavilion. Mr. Hale, we've removed your name from all printed and digital sponsor materials. We apologize for the oversight. Mr. Lang, events director. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I smiled a cold, tired smile that didn't reach my eyes. At 2 p.m., my mother's name flashed on caller ID. I let it ring out. A voicemail arrived seconds later. Marcus, what have you done? The venue says you embarrassed us. You called the police on your own family. You're not well. I deleted it without listening to the rest. That night, Sloan posted a new video. Title: Toxic People and the Power of Boundaries. She looked straight into the camera, her tone dripping honey. Sometimes, she said, you have to let go of people who don't celebrate your success, even if they're family. The comments flooded in. Queen energy. So brave. Family isn't always blood. I scrolled past every heart emoji and thought, she just described me. Aunt Ruth called around 10. They're spiraling, she said quietly. Your mother's furious. Sloane's rewriting history. Darren's begging you to make peace. I'm not fighting, I said. I'm done. I know, she said. But you should also know something else. That store card Sloane opened 5 years ago? The one she said was a mix-up? It's resurfaced. A collection agency contacted me because I'm still her emergency reference. I felt my pulse shift. She used my name again, didn't she? Not recently. But she did then. I found the original statement. Do you want a copy? Yes, I said. Email it. When I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, the folder Receipts glowing on the desktop. I renamed it Receipts Plus Boundaries. The next day, the phone rang again, this time from the family CPA. Miss Pike. Marcus, I've been meaning to reach out, she said, her voice careful. I'm reviewing last year's returns for your mother. There's a dependent listed under her that doesn't align with her residency claim. I didn't breathe for a second. My son, I said flatly. There was a pause. I can't confirm specifics, but you might want to review your own filings. I'll send a note off the record. Thank you, I said. After the call, I looked around the house. Everything was the same. Benji's school art taped to the fridge. The Lego ship half built on the table, the faint hum of the fridge. But it all felt sharper now, like the air had learned to cut back. I used to think revenge meant explosion, confrontation, shouting until the walls shook. But standing there, surrounded by quiet proof, I realized the truth. Sometimes revenge is just turning off the faucet they've been drinking from and waiting for the silence to teach them thirst. And silence was finally on my side. The morning they came, the sky was white with heat, the kind of colorless day that makes everything hum. I'd already made coffee, packed Benji's lunch, and fixed a client's router before 9. Life was ordinary again, almost boring. And then came the knock. It wasn't the kind of knock that asked permission. 3 sharp raps, firm, controlled. Through the peephole 2 uniforms. My heart didn't race. It just tightened, like a knot that had been waiting years for this pull. Mr. Hale? The taller one asked as I opened the door. We received a call. Welfare concern regarding a minor. Behind him, the shorter officer scanned the porch. Professional. Detached. Of course you did, I said softly. Come in. The living room was spotless. The way it always is when you've lived years being compared to chaos. Benji was on the couch, pajama-clad, legs crossed under him, spoon midair. Cartoon laughter filled the background. Hey, buddy, the shorter officer said. You doing okay? Benji nodded. I'm fine. We're just having cereal. Looks good, the officer said, smiling. Why don't we talk in the kitchen? I offered. The kitchen lights were on, bright and sterile. A mug of coffee sat next to my phone. I gestured to it. Everything you need to know is in there. The taller officer frowned. Sir? My family, I said. They missed my son's birthday. Then they sent me an invoice for someone else's party 2000. $100 per person. They used my name on a sponsor list without permission. When I changed my locks, they reported me for threats and stolen property. The officer's brows rose. Stolen property? Apparently, I said dryly. They think a spare house key qualifies as an heirloom necklace. That earned a quiet chuckle from the younger one. I unlocked the phone, scrolled to the folder named Receipts plus Boundaries, and passed it over. Inside were screenshots, messages, PDFs, the digital autopsy of my family's decay, the brunch story, the sponsor page, the Venmo note, the email to the venue. Every line, every timestamp. The taller officer scrolled, his jaw tightening. This is thorough. I fix networks, I said. Documentation keeps people honest. He nodded. We see this a lot. Family used to access money or free labor. Someone says no. They call us to scare them back into line. He handed the phone back carefully. There's no issue here. You want to make a statement? Yes. Please log that they filed a false report and misused my name for financial commitments. Will do. I watched as he typed it in, each click like a nail sealing a coffin. Any weapons in the house? Only butter knives, I said. And a collection of Lego swords. That earned an actual laugh. The shorter one said, if they show up or keep harassing you, don't answer the door. Call us directly. You're good. When the door finally shut behind them, I stood in the quiet for a long time. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. Benji slurped the last of his cereal. I wasn't angry anymore. Just clear. By noon, my email pinged with a reply from Mr. Lang at Harborview Pavilion. Mr. Hale, we've removed your name from all printed and digital sponsor materials. We apologize for the oversight. Regards, C. Lang, Event Director. I stared at the message, felt my shoulders drop. One clean thread cut. Then, inevitably, came my mother. Her voicemail tone chirped. You have one new message. Marcus, she began, voice trembling with anger disguised as pain. What did you do? You embarrassed me. You embarrassed all of us. Calling the police? Do you know how that looks? You're tearing this family apart. The message crackled. I could hear clinking glass in the background. Champagne, probably. Always champagne when she needed courage. She ended with the same line she'd used my whole life. You'll regret this one day. I deleted it before she could finish the threat. That evening, Sloan went live on Instagram. I wasn't following her, but someone sent me the link. The title, How to Protect Your Energy from Toxic Relatives. I watched her for exactly 30 seconds. The lighting was perfect. Her voice smooth, rehearsed. Sometimes, she said, you have to cut off people who drain you. Even if they're blood, they'll paint themselves as victims. But you know your truth. Comments poured in. Preach. Queen behavior. Family isn't always love. I closed the video. It didn't hurt it, just confirmed what I already knew. They were rewriting the story, and I was no longer a character. At 5:47 p.m., Aunt Ruth texted from an unknown number. They're furious. Sloane's screaming about losing the venue's discount. Valerie's trying to spin it as a misunderstanding. Darren says you owe him for making mom cry. For what it's worth, Marcus, you did the right thing. I stared at her message until the words blurred. Then I typed back. I didn't do anything. I just stopped doing things. She replied with a single emoji sad smile. Somehow, it felt truer than a paragraph. Later that night, after Benji went to bed, I printed the venue email, hole-punched it, and slipped it into my binder. Page 142. Right between tax records 2023 and photos, evidence of absence. For once, I didn't feel the need to explain or defend. Every document in that binder was a small act of survival. At midnight, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I didn't answer. A text followed. You think you're better than us? Wait until the Sweet 16. You'll see who looks small then. I recognized Sloane's phrasing instantly. The performative cruelty of someone who still needed an audience. I typed one sentence and hit send. I already saw. No reply. I stood by the window for a while, the cool glass against my forehead. Outside, the street was empty. The neighbors' porch lights glowed like distant stars. For the first time, I realized I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. Freedom doesn't roar. It hums. It sounds like the click of a lock turning smooth. The whisper of papers sliding into a folder. The steady breath of a child asleep in the next room. It was the quietest climax imaginable, no shouting. No breaking glass, just the sound of a man reclaiming the small, ordinary life he'd built. And deciding it was enough. And in that silence, I smiled. Not because I'd won, but because I'd finally stopped playing. The night of Maddie's Sweet 16 arrived like a headline I didn't click. I didn't need to. I already knew how it would read: gold sequins, fake smiles, real bills. While my family was posing under chandeliers, I was at the park with Benji. The basketball court was cracked and faded, but under the sunset, it looked like glass. We played until the sky turned orange and the cicadas hummed. He laughed every time the ball rimmed out and shouted, "Next one's mine." I bought us milkshakes on the way home, strawberry for him, chocolate for me. The total came to $7.18. The best money I'd spent all year. Back home, the house felt different. Not empty light. The air was clear in a way I hadn't felt since childhood. Before promises started costing interest. While Benji brushed his teeth, I sat at the table, scrolling through the news feed I'd been avoiding. Photos from the party were everywhere. Maddie surrounded by orchids, a caviar bar under a fog of dry ice. Sloane's caption read, "Family is forever." My name wasn't anywhere on the sponsor banner. For the first time, that felt right. At 10:23 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Aunt Ruth. "You didn't miss anything. The cake melted. Your mother fought with the DJ." The bill came, and no one looked up. Sloane's card declined twice. "They whispered your name like it was a curse. You did the right thing." I stared at the screen and felt nothing sharp, just quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't need witnesses. Benji padded into the room, hair damp from his shower. "Dad, do you think Grandma's still mad?" I smiled. "Maybe, but that's not our problem." He nodded, yawning. "Okay." After tucking him in, I opened my laptop and added the newest document to my folder, Harborview removed sponsor confirmation, PDF. Below it, I created a subfolder labeled Leverage. Inside, I dropped the email from Miss Pike about Mom's tax filing and the credit statement from Aunt Ruth. I didn't plan to use them, not yet, but I wanted them safe. Sometimes revenge isn't a strike, it's preparation, a quiet readiness. Before bed, I stood by Benji's door and watched him sleep. One arm flung over his head like a tiny knight at rest. I whispered, "We're good, kiddo. We're finally good." My phone buzzed again on the counter. Unknown number. "Marcus, it's Ray. I'm outside." The message glowed in the dark kitchen. And just like that, the past knocked again, this time with my father's voice. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit that subscribe button. Tell me where you're watching from and what line you'll never let anyone cross again. Because sometimes, the people who call it love are just testing how much you'll tolerate. I thought silence meant peace, but it turns out silence can be armor too. This story isn't over. There's still a knock waiting at my door. And the man behind it is the reason my mother learned how to weaponize affection. Stay tuned. Next time, we'll see what happens when I finally open it.